the first thing is obviously do your skincare routine. I have already done that on my face. I do want to go in with a lip balm. I always make sure my lips are hydrated. It doesn't really matter what routine you're doing, but I thought I would throw this in here today. I'm using the Treat Marshmallow Cream Lip Balm. It is a organic line, so it's like this gigantic thing. So I'm just gonna put that all over my lips. And I'm just going to put my hair, or my 3 hairs, back with this little bow just so it's not in our way. So I'm going to be looking super cute. I have this one little hair that doesn't want to follow suit. All right, so the first thing is obviously a primer. Use whatever primer suits your skin. You know that I love the Too Faced Hangover. It is pretty much my favorite. But lately, I've been enjoying the Catrice Prime and Fine Beautifying Primer. I don't know what it is. The combination of these base products with this primer just jive well, and I've been liking it. It does have a very strong scent, so if you are sensitive to that, or you don't like, it's like a rose perfumey scent, then you know, I would say skip this. And I'm just going to put this all over my skin. It does give a nice illuminated finish to the skin. If you are oily, maybe this isn't the best primer for you, but for me, I am more of a normal to oily, dehydrated. I have lots of different skin on my face, and I just know what works for me. Obviously adjust for you, but that's what I'm gonna do for my skin. Even though I have a little bit of oil through my T-zone, I'm generally more of a normal dehydrated skin type. So I like illuminating products, and then I'll just put powder where I need it and that kind of thing. So I have that in my skin and it's feeling good. This does leave a slight tackiness to the face. It's not super tacky, but it's just enough where it allows your foundation to cling. On to the foundation that I have been enjoying and have loved for a long time. It's the L'Oreal. This hair is gonna bother me. I apologize. Hold on, let me fix my bow. That's better. All right, on to the foundation. Like I said, this is one that I've been loving for probably since the moment it came out, and there was really no surprise, but it's the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow. I love this one. I loved the original Pro Matte one that they came out with, but then when they got the Glow one, there's such good coverage in this. It just looks so good on the skin. It's this nice radiant finish, and it's perfect for me. However, the shade selection isn't great, so right now, I like to mix 202 and 203 to get my perfect match. It's such a pain to have to do that, but it is drugstore. If I'm self-tan, 203 is perfect for me, but 202 is just a tiny bit too neutral, too cool toned, and I need a little bit of a warm tone in my foundation. So I just kind of put that in the back of my hand. I don't know where my palette is. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of dot that on. I don't overly dot on foundation because I like to build it up. I have kind of bounced back and forth between a damp sponge and just even a flat top brush. So it's really up to you, but I'm going to do the sponge today. Keeping a lot of the coverage in the center of the face and then just blending whatever's left down the neck and on the outer parts. Even though this is more my fuller coverage routine, I still don't do a mask. I still don't cover up every single freckle and all of that. That's a personal preference. I still want to look like I'm human and I have skin and these are my freckles. So I don't want to completely hide them. My redness, and if I have any blemishes, yes, that I'll hide. Even right there with using a damp sponge and a light little layer, we have built up a pretty good amount of coverage, enough to counteract any of that redness. So sometimes what I do is, if I need a little bit more, I'll do my little mixture and I'll go in with a brush in the areas that I need a little bit more. Sometimes I'll start off the brush, you know, it really depends on my mood that day and how much time I have. So I have some on my brush, and I'm gonna go ahead and start pressing that in. Obviously, the brush, as you can see, gives way more coverage. I will bounce my sponge over this to kind of soak up any excess. I like to really make sure to press it around the nose area where I have those larger pores. I'm not going too close to the eye area, the under eye area, because we are going in with concealer, and I just don't want to put too much product under the eye. If you feel like there's any excess, you can always just bounce your sponge. All right, so that is a nice amount of coverage for me because we are going to be going in with some powder and concealer. So I don't like to completely, like I said, mask the face. Of course, if you want more of a matte finish, go for a matte finish if you have a very oily skin type. But as you can see, I have a nice like sheen glow to my skin already. Personally, I like to mattify the skin with powder so I can control it as opposed to using a foundation. However, I do love my Maybelline Matte and Poreless. That one I just find isn't like super matte. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail on foundation. That's not the purpose of this video. Let's go into the concealer. Now, if I were to talk about a few months ago, obviously I'd be using my Tarte Shape Tape. But I may put this one aside for today because I have found a combination that I am enjoying. And I was kind of surprised by it actually, because one, I wasn't like completely sold on. So the first one is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow. This is in the shade number 2, Creamy Natural. Now, I would have probably purchased this just so I can use it on its own, but it's too dark and it doesn't give me a full coverage where I may want it. So I use the Catrice Liquid Camouflage High Coverage Concealer. Now when I use this on its own, I'm not a fan of it, but for some reason when I put these little guys together, I like the combination, and one brightens and one kind of counteracts any darkness, that kind of thing. Let's start off with the Pro Glow. I actually like the flat paddle on this. My only complaint is when this goes too close to my eye stings. Like I can feel like there's fumes coming off of it. It's the weirdest thing. I have never had that happen with any concealer, so I'm not quite sure. I am gonna just do a couple little dots on the little nose crevice, tiny bit here and there, not a whole lot. I am going to start off with a brush and pat this in. I like to do this step if I'm looking for a little more fuller coverage, a little more seamless coverage, especially this brush. It's the Morphe E7. I love it because it's angled, but it's flat. It kind of just gets right in there. And it's so densely packed, but it's mobile and moves around. So I do the brush step first because it won't take off the excess like I would with a sponge. Now, if I was going in with Tarte Shape Tape, I would go right with the sponge because I don't mind a little excess coming up since it is such a full coverage concealer. But with this Glow one, it's more of a medium, I would say light to medium coverage, but it still looks nice. It looks very dewy. If I had a color match that was perfect, I would just use this on its own for my natural days, but they have a very limited selection. It's kind of annoying, but I do like the way it looks under my eyes. And I'll just set with a little powder and I'll be on my way, but it's just a touch too dark. The lights are kind of canceling out the yellowness and a little bit of oranginess that it does look on me when I'm looking in my mirror or in regular daylight. Let's start moving on to the more fuller coverage and brightening aspect of my concealer. So I take this a little bit lower and back to brighten, but I don't want a whole lot up in this area for my eye because again, that's where it starts to look a little crepey. So I keep a lot of it a little lower, and then when I blend out with my sponge or my brush, I'm in good shape. So I'm using this as kind of a brightener and highlighting a little bit to define the face slightly. The color is not so far off though. That's the thing. Don't go with something that's like 3 shades lighter. Personally, I don't like the way that looks. It's a personal preference. I see a lot of that on Instagram and it's a trend, but for me, I don't think it should be far off. Like you can probably barely tell. Again, my lights wash me out a little bit, but in person, it's just a nice, subtle highlight. Again, I'm using my brush so I get the most coverage. Now, if I feel like I want to take off any excess, I'll go in with my sponge. Personally, I don't think it looks bad, but I'll just tap it gently. I'm barely tapping, but I'm kind of just lightly bouncing that all over the skin to take off any excess that's just not blending into the skin off on the sponge. So see, just me doing that, I've taken off a little excess. Obviously, this isn't my everyday routine because I'm taking my time. I'm slowly showing you. If I'm getting ready, I'm a lot faster. I enjoy putting on makeup. So there are times I just sit here and I'm leisurely bouncing. If it's like a day I don't have a whole lot going on, just because I enjoy the art of applying makeup. So I like to take my time. I don't like to rush through it always. Now that things are kind of pushed into the skin, I'm gently also taking my finger to take off any excess under the eyes. We don't want any creasing. You can use your sponge, but honestly, I like using my finger. So a lot of the product isn't just being removed, it's just gently being pushed in. Now, this is where things get high maintenance for me. Again, it's just a personal thing, but I have a few powders that I like to use. You're gonna think I'm nuts. First things first, I want to set my under eye. So I actually love this one from Covergirl. It's the Advanced Radiance. I'm sure you've seen me use this before. So I like to lightly, I'm going to get my brush and I'm just going to put some, tap off the excess, look up, and I'm barely touching my under eye. Again, if you're in your early 20s, if you're 19 or a teenager, and you don't have this dry crepiness going on, then you don't have to worry about this. But I'm in my mid-30s, and I have to worry about this. So you have to alter how people are applying makeup. You see everyone on YouTube, you see these things happening all over the social media, but you have to tailor it to you. So now that I've done that and I've set it, I can add, you know, a little bit more, but it's that first initial amount of powder that I want the concealer to cling to. I don't want a lot of it. So I am just going to go back with a touch more, and I'm going to go a little further down. And I'm always going from the inner corner to the outer corner, and then back to the inner corner, and then back out. I just do like 2 passes. Doing the same thing over here. I like this powder because it's not really cakey, but it also gives like a luminous natural finish. It's very similar to my MAC Mineralize Skin Finish, which I do have beside me, and I love. This one's more of like a foundation. You can use this for a little more extra coverage. So if I felt like I still had a little bit of something peeking through, I can go in with my MAC Mineralize Skin Finish in medium, go in with that foundation brush. I always I have a towel in front of me, take off any excess so it's not wet and taking too much powder. And I'll just maybe stamp that right there if I feel like that's an area that I need a little more coverage. Or right here, I have a vein on my face that I am a little self-conscious, so it adds like this darkness. So I'll just kind of dab, 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 press that and add some more coverage. Right. Now, what I like to do for the rest of the face, you know, you don't always need to do that MAC step, but this is what I'll do for the rest of the outer part of my face where I know I'm going in with powder bronzer. And I like to use more of an illuminating powder so things look more like glowy and skin-like. I like to go in with my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in Ethereal Light. And I just take a very large brush and kind of pat that everywhere. Now things are looking a little bit even more fuller coverage because we add that powder on and things are less glowy, but you can still see like there is sheen on my face. That's what I'm going for. So the next thing obviously is bronzer. You can skip this step. I'm just showing you these extra steps because I want to show you the pattern in which I apply them. So I'm going in with my L'Oreal Glam bronzer, and I'm taking a nice fluffy, soft, like bunny type brush. This is like a bunny paw. It's the Crown Brush Precision Powder Brush SS024. And I'm just going to gently put this on the outer parts, even back to my ear and the hairline, just to kind of add some definition to my face. So see, there is a difference between this side of my face and this side. Now for the fun part, which is highlighter. I love doing the highlighter, but I do this in 2 different series of application. Again, we're going high maintenance today. Not usually what I do on my channel, but to show you if I want to be high maintenance, I can. So now let's go in with Essence Pure Nude. Love this thing. Oh my gosh. I can't even believe I still have it. I use this all the time, like every day. So I'm using this in a wider span because it's a little bit more glowy and less bam in your face highlight. However, you can build this up. You can use this wet and it will be bam. So this is kind of where I would take it on my cheeks to have that little bit of glow on my cheeks, but I wouldn't use that with most highlighters because I wouldn't want to accentuate any pores there. Now the next step is just to grab some blush. So I have my little palette here, just some different options. I like to sometimes mix. We're gonna go in with Tarte Exposed, which is more of like a neutral tone. I love this because it doesn't matter what you do in your eyes. It always looks good. And I use a nice floppy brush because it gives a nice airbrushed application. You may have to build it up, but I think for blush, it should never be bam. You have a lot of color and then you're trying to blend it out and really rubbing your face with a brush. And then sometimes you move things around in your foundation and you're blotchy. So I use a nice like floppy, very floppy. This is Luxie 640 Pro Precision Tapered. Now I like how that looks overall, but if you want like a little pop of pink, you can go in with something brighter. This is, what is this? Tarte Fearless. This is more of like a cool tone, Barbie pink kind of thing. And I'm just gonna take that on the apples. Okay, so the next step, which is kind of key in this routine, even if I'm doing a lightweight application, I'll always do this. I go in with my setting spray before I go in with more of my Bam highlighter because it will just make it more reflective if your face is just a little bit damp. And I like to set all these layers before I go in with more highlighter, you know? So let's grab Skindinavia Makeup Finishing Spray. This is the Bridal one. I like to give that a minute to set in my skin and just melt any powderiness or any of those products that we use before we go in with that highlighter. You can just allow that to set and then your skin will be just a tiny bit tacky when you go in with that highlighter, but you don't want it to be wet and drag any of the product that we have underneath. If you feel like you have a lot of excess setting spray, go in with your sponge and kind of press. Okay, now's the time for a little bang highlight. I'm gonna actually go in with Becca's Champagne Pop. This one can sometimes be a little too dark when I'm this pale. So I'm gonna mix it with the Sleek Solstice palette here, and I'm gonna mix it with this white shade because I'm feeling like it. Put a little bit of the Solstice one and a little bit of Champagne Pop. And I'm going to only take this back here. Ooh! And I like to take a little bit more of my Cupid's bow. There you go. That's my fuller base look. This is basically the same thing I would do with maybe different products. I'll change out some products, but overall, these are the steps I would take. These are the products that I've been loving lately to use on an everyday basis, and I should go and put on some brows and finish the eyes and the lips, and I will be back to wrap up this video. There you have it. I have the rest of my makeup on so you can kind of see everything together. I hope this was helpful as far as how to make your base be fuller coverage, but without looking like there's a lot of makeup. Definitely give this video a big thumbs up if you like it. And also comment below, give me some new video ideas, things that you want to see from me. I do have a list and a book going of some upcoming things and some new type of videos that I'm excited to start filming. But I always love your feedback. So if there's anything that you want to see, I know I have had suggestions in the past and I do have those on the list as well to do, but fire down below. I love hearing from you. And if you are new today and you have not subscribed, you know where that button lives. And also don't forget to hit that little bell. That will notify you when I upload my next video. Thank you so much for joining me and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.